Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everybody. Thank you for tuning into another Supatease video. And Blizzard is pulling the ripcord when it comes to Mythic Plus in Season 2, as participation for the game mode has significantly declined in Season 1, and the community has been in an uproar, whether it's social media, YouTube content creators, or just the average Joe trying to go into LFG. People have been very upset, so they've released this extensive update on their plans and their goals and their aims oriented around patch 11.1 to hopefully restore Mythic Plus to its former position and send its trajectory into an incline rather than a decline. And I'm curious to see if any of these improvements could also possibly be considered for PvP and its improvement, because we've not really heard anything as far as the systems that PvP players are basically in an uproar about just yet, most extensively being MMR. We've yet to hear anything in regards to that, whereas Mythic Plus just keeps getting update after update after update. And with their initial kind of summary here in their opening statement, they acknowledge that players are struggling to find groups because Mythic Plus is just really hard. And if you fail in the Mythic Plus, it's really punishing, right? People will rage, they'll leave, the group disbands, and things become really toxic really quick, and then just leads to a degrading experience over time. Also, the fact that they've just implemented delves, so you can do basically solo competitive PVE content, or with one of your homies, or with just a couple of your homies. You can basically flex the group. It's way more flexible. It's way less demanding in terms of meta. So to me, honestly, I think its delves have contributed a huge amount to the decline of Mythic Plus, just because of their accessibility advantages as opposed to Mythic Plus. And honestly, as long as the gear remains competitive from delves, I think a lot of players are still going to prefer them. Let me know if that's one of you in the comments down below, where it's just, I don't want to deal with the sweaty environment and the really heavy group restrictions and all these mechanics. I'd rather just stick to delves, run them when I've got time at home, be able to get up from the computer to deal with any responsibilities if I need to without kind of impeding the group, right? That's the other advantage of delves, is like you got to stand up and go somewhere. You can get up and go somewhere. You're in the middle of a key and diaper needs to be changed. Your group hates you, you're going on blacklist, and you're never doing a Mythic Plus again, right? So I feel like with the aging population of World of Warcraft, this more accessible, casual game mode is likely just going to take over. But they're doing their best to try and make sure that Mythic Plus can stay around. We've already approached our Season 2 dungeon rollout on the PTR and ongoing tuning with an eye towards mechanical issues. Cast times on critical enemy spells have been significantly increased. Tank damage spikes reduced in magnitude and or given better telegraphs. The overall number of threats in an average pack of enemies has been reduced, and much more. So just simplifying the gameplay, making it less punishing, making it less demanding seems to be their main goal in the initial stages of this. And I've seen the animation updates that they've given to a lot of mechanics. I think they look a lot better, just clear, discernible circles on the ground for mechanics that you need to avoid and get out of. Maybe some changes like this as well to just class abilities and class animations for PvP would also be a great improvement. There's a lot of abilities that are kind of just hidden and very silent, and although they're really powerful, you don't really notice them visually. When we think about other games like Overwatch or Marvel Rivals, when a character is using a very strong ability, they have an audio cue, and it's usually a very expansive visual that comes along with it for you to be able to prepare and to deal with it. But in World of Warcraft, there's a lot of cooldowns. I'm thinking mostly rogue cooldowns. When they activate them, something like an adrenaline rush, it's like you get a little bit of a fire on your character or something. It's not even barely that. And it's not as obvious that like, oh, this guy's kind of scary right now, I should be prepared for something, which ends up just being that you need to memorize what every single icon looks like and have a weak aura pop up in the middle of the screen if you want to know when those abilities that are a little bit more hidden have been activated. So I think applying this logic as well to just the classes spells, which they have been updating some visuals, but it seems like it's more so for flavor as opposed to functionality with a lot of the visual updates that they've done so far. But what I like is for like Survival Hunter with the pack leader, you're going to call in Leok, which is this wyvern that flies in through the sky, and that increases your damage. It's like, okay, well, this wyvern flew in above this guy. He might be kind of scary. These types of visual cues, better audio cues, I think could go a long way with just, it would also help in PvE, just knowing when your allies have activated powerful cooldowns, but in PvP as well. We also made improvements to rewards, and especially reducing the penalty of failing to finish a dungeon within the timer in the Siren Isle content update, but we understood that there was still more to do in order to fully address the feedback we've been hearing. Now, as we approach our second season, we have a chance to make some broader changes to the structure of Mythic dungeon progression. So I really like that they have been iterating on this with small improvements over time, constantly having dialogue back and forth with the community as to how it is being received, and then adding more into it for improvement into the future. To me, it's these types of steps and communication that's obviously going to create a really good product in the future. I wish we could get a little bit more of this for PvP, because it's obvious that, that they are capable of it. A factor that we see as an underlining cause of many of the cited issues is the lack of smooth and healthy difficulty reward progression in the current system, and rewards are an essential part of that picture. The introduction of delves have significantly changed the endgame reward ecosystem. Yep. Players who are accustomed to do Mythic Plus in the past expansions may have geared up in delves at the start of the Season 1, and then looked at Mythic Plus reward track and found few or no rewards worth their time below a Mythic 7 or so. So that two effects. So they're going to have to start on keystones that are really high, and they're probably not prepared for them, is likely my first bet, which is what this first paragraph goes into. And then if they're jumping into them, they're more likely to hold the group back. And then if the group falls apart, that's, again, going to just keep spiraling down negatively. And then the lower level keys are going to have less people running them, which then leads into, they had graphs of participation of Mythic Plus declining. A lot of that Mythic Plus participation was probably lower range keys that now they're useless because you can just get that gear from delves. Why would I bother going through the LFG process to do this lower range key when I can get the same item level from delve? But now when I transition over, I don't want to do those low keys, but I'm not good enough skill wise to be able to do the high keys. So now there's just overall way less keys being done. And it's honestly delves. Delves have killed Mythic Plus. I think Mythic Plus participation would probably be comparable, maybe not as high as Season 1 Dragonflight, obviously, because I think overall population is probably going down over time, but I think it would be a lot better than it was at the moment. So it's honestly all on delves. Like, I honestly think even with all these changes are great, but even if they didn't make any of these changes, if delves just didn't exist, I think participation would have been still very, very high, and looked a lot healthier than it currently is. Looking ahead to Season 2, our aim is to make the Mythic Dungeon system more rewarding from the outset, and to smooth out the difficulty progression so that each step feels approachable. So they're going to be doing champion gear tracks from Mythic 0. So they're going to try and make the lower keystones more gear rewarding, so that players want to run the lower keys in order to get upgrades. That's definitely going to bump the participation numbers up a lot. If we're just looking at charts, and that's our main goal, is just keeping the charts really high, putting better gear at the lower keystone levels, people can complete lower keystones really easily and probably really quickly, so it's gonna look like more keys are being done. So obviously that's going to make those metrics look better. From Mythic 2 through 10, each new level will now increase the health of enemies by 7% down from 10, so just nerfing the scaling difficulty. The Zaltaz bargain rotating affixes will move up from Mythic 2 to Mythic 4, leaving no affixes other than the existence of a timer at the 2 entry levels of the Mythic Plus system, so just spacing out rotating affixes even further. The alternating cycle of Tyrannical and Fortify will move up from Mythic 4 to replace the Challenger's Peril at Mythic 7, with the other one continuing to take effect at Mythic 10. At Mythic 12, instead of an additional 10% increased enemy health, Zaltaz Guile will now include the increased timer penalty for deaths that was formerly part of the Challenger's Peril as a replacement for rotating bargain affixes. While the mechanic could feel overly punishing for groups still learning and progressing towards gear rewards, a focus on clean execution means remains appropriate for the upper echelons of the system, and removing the extra 10% stats should make the transition into the prestige tiers of the system feel like less of a wall. So getting that curve, of a smooth ride going upwards is super important with WoW. I feel like a lot of World of Warcraft, especially if you start as a new player, you're at the base boards, right? Like, it's not really hard. It's very, very easy, but it never really forces you to get challenged to go up at all in difficulty. And then you get to the end game, and then it's like, boom, everything is really high. And it's just like completely inaccessible, and you're just like, it's like a huge wake up call. So this is nice that they're doing this for Mythic Plus, but honestly I think it's like something that should be considered as well. Just even the leveling process, making sure that the difficulty curve is slowly amping up so that you're aware that mechanics are more and more threatening. So that when you do get to this end game stage, it's not just like what is going on is a completely different game than what I had just been previously playing. The requirements to achieve some key reward tiers have been reduced. Example, Hero Track gear is now available in the end run of chests from Mythic 6 dungeons, and Guilty Crests are available from Mythic 7 and up. So they're just adding more rewards, lower keystones, it's going to be easier. I would find it hard to believe that participation will not be higher, just because if it's easier, obviously more keys are going to be done and they're going to be done quicker. And if they have rewards to actually be worth doing them on those lower level difficulties, then these numbers are going to get padded up a lot higher. Does it mean that, is Mythic Plus fun though, right? I feel like that's something also begs the question, is Mythic Plus actually fun? Are people doing it because it's fun? Are they doing it because it's really easy rewards and an item level jump? And will they stop doing it after they get that item level jump? Is a question that remains to be said. And I think they've made that in posts as well. Like what makes Mythic Plus fun? How can we make Mythic Plus fun? Is it just getting the gear? Is that what you consider to be fun? I feel like this is an important underlining question for the game as a whole. So let me know in the comments down below. What do you find fun? Do you actually find the dungeons themselves, the mechanics of the dungeons themselves, the challenge of the dungeon? Is that what's fun to you? Or is it just open the big shiny at the end of the thing in a box and you're very happy when you get the thing that you really wanted to go after, and then maybe you feel a little bit solemn after you've gotten it because it's like, what do I do now? I got the best item, and where do you go from there? Because I think this is a really important question to ask. But I think no doubt these changes are likely to increase the participation. I think they fall in line with what a lot of players have been asking for, and all of the comments are really positive about it. Good changes, good changes. Just lowering the difficulty. This guy says he's still not doing them. For the most part, everybody seems to be really positive about this. It seems like there's a current meta that's like really anti-sweat. So these changes, making it really easy, making it more accessible, everybody gets really happy about it. We'll have to wait and see if it actually pans out in the long term, or if it's just a short-term bump where everybody jumps in, gets their loot, and then dips out and doesn't run it anymore. That's what I'm curious to see. Or if they actually do like the dungeons, they're going to keep running the dungeons, or if delves will just end up ultimately taking over and kind of just running the show because they're just way more accessible. They're not as meta demanding as Mythic Plus, and you can get competitively decent rewards as options, progress at your own leisure in that sense. But another thing I saw on this that was interesting was that I think your keystone's no longer going to degrade after a certain point. It's kind of like a key protection system. I think it's after like a level 12, your keystones are no longer going to decline. I wonder if they should add protections in PvP rating. So let's say you get to 2400. Now your rating can no longer fall below 2300. For example, because I know rating anxiety is a huge thing for people, especially beginners, even just like medium level players. It's just like even advanced players get rating anxiety towards the top end. It's like, oh God, what if I lose and I just lose all my progress that I've spent weeks for, and it's going to all be gone. And then they just don't queue. They freeze up and they don't queue. So I wonder if adding like some safety nets to rated PvP, maybe not huge ones, but I've seen some people go from like 3K rating in BG Blitz down to 2K rating in BG Blitz in like, a very fast amount of time. And I feel like that's going to be very demoralizing. So maybe this is why I think reading through these changes as well is to try and fish for possible improvements for PvP is a good idea. And I think that that's definitely one that could be applied. What do you guys think of that? Adding a little bit of like rating protection, maybe like 100 rating protection. A bit worried about maybe exploiting with that, like if you could win trade another character with knowing that your character is only going to, maybe there would definitely be some complications around that, but that kind of just leads into Blizzard also being more stringent with that type of interaction going on in the community and kind of punishing it more to discourage it from happening in the first place. But I definitely think having like some rating protection would likely go quite a ways in terms of increasing participation overall. But it just seems like the community is really happy about this. I'm curious to see how it plays out. I really like at least how the feedback is being integrated, communicated with. All of this seems really healthy and moving in a really good direction, at least for Mythic Plus. So hopefully we're going to get this type of interaction at some point as well for PvP. But other than that, thank you guys very much for watching the video. I hope you guys enjoyed the update, and I will see you in the next one.